Hey everyone, thanks for joining me today. So in today's tutorial, I'm going to run through the difference between Virasana and Vajrasana. These two poses are very similar in how they sound and also how they look, so they tend to get interchanged and it can be a little bit confusing, so I just want to break all of this down, and there's so many variations to both of them that you can do, and they're a great stretch for your legs. Like, you're going to feel it in your hips, your thighs, your knees, and then most importantly, the top of your ankles and feet, which is great. That's what I'm going to focus on this week. So before we get started, go ahead and grab at least 2 towels or a couple of blankets if you have them, and then at least 1 block or book, whatever you have to give that lift. And then go ahead and meet me on the top of the mat. So we're going to start today with Virasana, which is also called hero pose. So to traditionally get into that, I'm going to have you walk forward almost like we're in tabletop. And so Virasana, that is when our bottom is actually sitting on the floor. So we just want to slowly get into this pose. So we're going to slowly walk back with our hands. And then when you feel comfortable, you're going to take your thumbs and you're kind of just going to push aside your calf flesh, getting that out of the way, and if it's available to you, coming all the way down onto your mat. So your sit bone is completely grounded on the mat. And your thighs are hip distance apart. So this is a very big stretch. Like, I'm feeling it a lot in my knee joints, and then I'm pushing down, I'm pressing away on the tops of my feet, and I'm feeling a great stretch in my ankles. So I'm sitting here, and then I'm going to soften my shoulders, I'm going to lengthen my spine and lift my chest. So this is called hero pose. So it's a very powerful pose. You're kind of invoking that power. This is a great pose to sit in for meditation or for the end of the night, winding down. It's a great stretch. So like I said, this is the traditional way, but I'm also going to show you some variations, because I know that this is not accessible to a lot of people, especially if you have a knee injury. I wouldn't suggest that. So go ahead, I'm going to show you a couple of different variations. Actually, first I'm going to start with the block. So one quick variation. So you're on your knees, your legs are hip distance apart, and then you're going to set your block down in between your feet. So again, you're going to start forward, and then you're going to slowly, with control, walk back. You're going to push your calf flesh to the sides, and then you can sit. So now that your hips are elevated, you should feel a huge difference, specifically in your knee joint. It's going to take all that pressure off. Like, I could sit right here forever now, whereas if my bottom's just on the mat, it's a pretty limited amount of time how much I can stay in this pose, just because it's so stressful on my knees. So it's just important to be conscious of that. Like, you should be feeling a stretch in your knees for sure, but if it's painful, if it's causing discomfort, if there's like a pain shooting up, just get out of it. Like, your knees are so valuable. Don't push it. So again, we're relaxing our shoulder blades, and we're lengthening our spine and finding lift in our chest. And our gaze is straight ahead. Maybe you're closing your eyes and you're breathing. So this is one variation. So I'm going to get off of my block, and then I'm going to grab a towel. If you're wanting some extra like knee support or padding, this is what I suggest. So you're either on your towel or your blanket. This towel actually isn't like long enough, so I'm just going to kind of line both of my towels up side by side. And I want my ankles to just be off of the towel. And again, our thighs are hip distance apart, so they're equal to where our hip joints are. So let's go ahead. I'm getting ahead of myself. So let's go ahead and walk back. Again, we're pushing our calf flesh aside, and from here, And you'll have to adjust a little bit. From here, you can either sit all the way down or take your block and sit right here. So this feels really nice. Like, not only is your hips lifted so that pressure is off of your knees, but you're actually getting like extra cushioning and support underneath your knees and in your shins. So this is just super like comfy, cozy. Like, I could meditate right here for a long time. So that's one option. Another option, if you want, you can lift up and you can roll your towel. I just put it in half, and you can actually set it behind, or like in between your calf and thighs, and then sit down. And this, again, it just helps lift up your hips. So this feels pretty nice. If I lift my hips too much, it actually doesn't feel as good. So this doesn't feel as good as the other variations for me, but this could feel awesome for you. This could be like your variation. And then another variation that you could do, I'm gonna remove this towel. But if you're like, my knees still hurt really bad, what you can do, we'll take our towel, we'll lift up, and we'll put our towel or blanket all the way against our knees. And then again, our block is in between our legs, and we're gonna slowly, with control, sit back. So this might feel awesome to you. This actually doesn't feel good for me at all. This really hurts me. But if this feels good for you, go ahead and stay in it. Also, if you want to kind of practice or play with like bringing your knees together or having them hip distance apart, just kind of playing with that movement might also help. But again, softening the shoulder blades back, lengthening the spine, and lifting the chest. So those are your Virasana, your hero pose variations. And then we're going to go into Vajrasana. So the biggest difference with Vajrasana is that you're sitting on your heels now instead of before where you're like sitting on the mat. So the weight is on your heels. So you're going to come to the same tabletop position, but this time your heels are going to come together, and it's important to keep them active. You don't want them to come out like this, like fanning out, but you want to keep them together. So your heels are touching, and then you're slowly coming back on your heels. And so this is Vajrasana. I personally like Vajrasana a lot more than Virasana, and this is a kind of a standard meditation pose right here. And again, a couple of variations. If you need that extra support for your knees, go ahead, take your blanket again, put it underneath. I'm going to line these up because my towels aren't long enough apparently. You're going to have your ankles just past the towel. You're lining your heels up together and going ahead and sitting. So this feels really nice for me. Yeah, this is very supported. I like this a lot. Okay, so there's that. And then I'm going to go into one last variation of Vajrasana. So this one, we're going to come to tabletop, and instead of having our feet extended out, I'm actually going to have you prop them up so that you're on your tiptoes. And again, we're planting our heels together, and then we're going to come and we're going to sit right here. So the weight is on the ball of our feet, but Our bottoms are resting on our heels. Our shoulders are relaxed. We're finding that openness in our heart and chest. And this can be very uncomfortable, especially if you're not used to it. It's really waking up the energy in your feet right now, having all of the support and weight go onto your tiptoes. So I encourage you to stay into this pose as long as possible, but if it starts to hurt, just go ahead, walk your hands out, come to tabletop, and rest for a few moments. And then when you feel ready, you can tuck your toes again and come back. I actually really struggle with this pose just because of the alignment of my feet. It doesn't tend to feel very good, so I have to take a lot of breaks in this pose. So I just want to throw that out there, that you don't have to stay in this pose the whole time. Listen to your body. That's what yoga is all about. So yeah, I'm going to come out of here, and then I'm going to go back into traditional Vajrasana. And I don't know if I told you, but it's also called Thunderbolt pose. So if you hear that, it's Vajrasana. Okay, so that's my tutorial today on those two differences. I hope that you found this to be helpful. If you have any questions, please comment below or reach out to me. I'd love to hear from you, and I will answer you as soon as possible. Thank you. Namaste.